Most fast food extra value meals would get you into the Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese Atlanta Dream game on Thursday night. $13 and some change. Okay. Hell, if that's Chick-fil-A, the Indiana Fever tickets are less expensive than going to Chick-fil-A. Some of these fast food.
Something unusual has been happening with ticket pricing at the Indiana Fever's home arena lately. Prices have dropped low enough that, by Thursday night, seats for the matchup between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese's Atlanta Dream were going for around $13 and change, roughly the price of a fast food combo meal. Thousands of seats remained unsold heading into both that night's game and the following matchup, signaling clear dissatisfaction among the fan base directed at both the front office and head coach Stephanie White. The broader concern is that the team has been underperforming, narrowly getting past weaker opponents, which raises doubts about whether this roster is genuinely built for a serious championship push this season.
Some of these fast food places, and there are thousands of tickets still available for tonight's game and for Thursday's game. Fans, Caitlin Clark fans have made one thing very clear. They are not happy with the front office, and they are not happy with Stephanie White. The fact is, this team is underachieving. This team has barely survived.
Despite those struggles, the league did officially recognize Clark, naming her Eastern Conference Player of the Week. Her recent stretch included a perfect 3-0 record with a game-winning shot against the Mystics, a tied franchise record of 3 games with 3-0 plus point double-doubles, and a league record of 3 games with at least 30 points and 10 assists. She also climbed to 6th in franchise history for made three-pointers with 183, and recorded her 10th career game with 2 5+ points, 5 threes, and 5 assists, the second most such performances in league history. 3 points per game on 49% shooting from the field, aided by an improved floater and a fadeaway jumper from roughly 12 feet that's drawn comparisons to Kobe Bryant's mid-range game.
This team is underachieving. This team has barely survived against bad teams. Barely survived. And I don't know how many of us feel like this team can legitimately make a run at the title. Honestly. By the way, I can't believe I'm going to say this. The WNBA actually recognized Caitlin Clark. You may be like, wait, Rhodes, what? Yeah, hell may have froze over.
3 rebounds per contest, numbers that stand out given how often her playmaking sets up shots that go unconverted by teammates. Even with that level of individual production, it's taken an exceptional stretch from Clark just to keep the team winning consistently. 89 for general seating, with thousands of empty seats visible across the venue. 9, again with thousands of seats unsold, notable given that matchup is typically billed as the league's marquee rivalry in terms of fan interest, even though the on-court talent gap between the two players involved isn't particularly close.
Goes over. Caitlin Clark is your WNBA Eastern Conference Player of the Week. 3-0, game winner at the Mystics. Tied franchise record for most 30-point double-doubles, 3. WNBA record, most 30-point, 10-assist games, 3. 6th in franchise history in three-pointers made, 183. Recorded 10th career game with at least 25 points.
Part of the lingering fan frustration traces back to how the organization handled accusations last season that some fans were exhibiting racist behavior, a situation many felt was mishandled and has continued to affect goodwill toward the franchise. Combined with frustration over coaching decisions and the front office's overall direction, a number of fans have indicated they're scaling back their financial support, with some saying they'd rather watch from home, and others stating they don't plan to watch at all. Several cited a combination of factors: the handling of last year's controversy, ongoing injury concerns, and general dissatisfaction with the coaching staff as reasons they're hesitant to reinvest financially in supporting the team right now. The organization appears to be facing a genuine, ongoing issue with fan engagement and trust, regardless of whether it receives broader media attention.
Pointers made, 183. recorded 10th career game with at least 25 points, 5 3-pointers, and 5 assists. Second most in WNBA history. By the way, she's going to blow through all these before she's done, provided the haters don't run her the hell out of the league or her coach. But here we are. That's what this looks like. 25.3 points a game, 49% from the field. It does not hurt that Caitlin Clark has gotten a wicked little floater to the basket.
The ticket pricing and unsold inventory reflect a tangible, visible problem rather than mere speculation about fan sentiment. The conversation touched on how undersized players often need to process the game at a higher mental level than their taller counterparts, since legends like Bird and Magic, despite having solid frames, weren't elite physical specimens in the way today's giants tend to be. Neither possessed the kind of rare genetic build that separates today's tallest stars from the rest of the field. The hope was raised that someone like Jalen Brunson could spark a broader trend across the league, proving that outthinking more physically gifted opponents through smart, intelligent play remains a viable, sustainable path forward for smaller guards entering the game.
Floater to the basket, making her layups, and this wicked fadeaway turnaround jumper she's got from about 12 foot out that she is knocking down like she's Kobe. Kobe. I mean, seriously. 38.5% from three-point range, 6.7 assists per game. By the way, that'd be like 11 a game if anybody could make layups. 4.3.
The response affirmed that point strongly, noting that genuinely tall players, true outliers, genetically speaking, are remarkably rare sights outside the world of basketball entirely. Walking through daily life, going about a normal routine, encountering someone standing 6'10" or a full 7 feet tall is almost unheard of outside the confines of the league itself. You can go nearly a full year without crossing paths with someone built that way. Because that particular physical gift is so genuinely rare, oversized players can sometimes lean on raw size and natural genetic talent to compensate for gaps in basketball, intelligence, or feel. Since their build alone creates a built-in advantage, smaller players simply don't have access to no matter how hard they work. Magic Johnson, despite his legendary status and career, reportedly never once stepped onto a basketball court in his entire life, wishing he were 6'1" instead of his actual height.
Could make layups. 4.3 rebounds. So Caitlin Clark, absolutely smushing it right now. She's killing it. And and here's the thing. It's taken this kind of run for them to win. Seriously. It's taken this kind of run for them to win games. Let's go over here. Let's look at tonight's game. By the way,
Meanwhile, smaller guards like Brunson or the speaker himself regularly look across the floor at a towering opponent and genuinely wish for that kind of natural size advantage. That particular insecurity practically never crosses the mind of a 7-footer wishing they were smaller and quicker. Instead, never really enters that psychological space for them. For undersized players, though, surviving and thriving in this league means being noticeably faster, sharper, and more skilled across the board, just to offset what bigger players essentially get handed for free through genetics alone. Shifting topics away from the NBA Finals entirely, the conversation moved toward a recent comment suggesting the famous Jordan flu game narrative has been misrepresented and mislabeled over the years since it originally happened.
Come over to the watch party, the Ben Daniel Podcast TV channel. For a watch party, I'll be moderating in there and conversing with the chat. And Ben will be, of course, giving you all of his smart-ass takes as the game is going on. It is undoubtedly one of the probably the funnest streams that I've ever been on. And I've been on a lot for a lot of different.
The explanation given was that as people who genuinely cover and document the sport's history for a living, accuracy in storytelling matters above all else. At the time of the game itself, the public was told Jordan had the flu, but his own personal physician later came forward and confirmed that wasn't actually the case at all. Despite that correction eventually surfacing publicly, the game continues to be remembered, retold, and promoted under that same flu game label decades later, even though it's now widely understood within informed circles to be inaccurate. The real unsung hero of that legendary performance according to the explanation given, was teammate Scottie Pippen, who was reportedly playing through a back injury serious enough at the time that hospitalization would have arguably been the more reasonable course of action medically. Pippen never received proper credit or recognition for competing under those genuinely difficult physical conditions, even though footage from that exact game clearly shows an exhausted Jordan visibly leaning on him for physical support down the stretch.
Damn near a year, you don't see a one no more. You see them in the NBA and everything, but when you're walking in your daily life, you don't see like 6'10", 7 feet guys. So they have the genetics of size, and therefore they don't, in the game of basketball, their size and their genetic gifts can make up for sometimes their lack of intellect. So they don't have to be as smart as the small.
The broader point being made throughout wasn't about diminishing anyone, but simply about historical accuracy. Pippen reportedly played through a legitimately severe back issue that night while simultaneously helping carry an ailing Jordan off the floor afterward, and that specific part of the story tends to get completely lost in the retelling over the years. Pressed further on whether Jordan was actually genuinely sick that particular night, the response clarified that Jordan himself had publicly maintained at the time that he was ill, but medical records that surfaced later indicated food poisoning specifically rather than influenza. The point reiterated firmly throughout was simply that being sick from food poisoning is medically and factually different from having the flu, and that the historical record covering this iconic moment should reflect that meaningful distinction accurately rather than continuing to use the inaccurate, more dramatic-sounding label that stuck around for decades. When pushed on alternate framing, perhaps calling it more of an illness game broadly, without specifying which illness, the response pushed back gently, suggesting Jordan wasn't truly ill in the commonly understood sense tied directly to the original flu narrative as it's been told for years.
Player, because the smaller player, get this Magic Johnson in his life has never, ever came to the basketball court wishing he could be 6'1". Every time Jalen Brunson or myself walked out on the floor, we looking at a big guy saying, man, I wish I was that big. If I was that big, I would do.
Offered a compromise label along the lines of a flu symptom game paired explicitly with acknowledgement of Pippen's far more serious back issue. The response welcomed that particular framing enthusiastically, reiterating once again that there was absolutely no intention to diminish what Jordan accomplished scoring-wise that legendary night. Simply a genuine desire for the full surrounding context, including Pippen's significantly more serious physical state at the time, to be represented honestly and accurately going forward. Asked directly and somewhat pointedly whether Pippen had also managed to score 38 points himself during that same game, the answer given was clearly no, with the clarification repeated once more that nothing about Jordan's individual scoring output or competitive effort that night was being questioned or diminished in any way, only that the surrounding historical narrative, as it's commonly told, deserved more factual accuracy and proper context. The discussion then turned to the Detroit Pistons and their surprisingly early playoff exit despite having earned the top overall seed entering the postseason. The explanation offered was that Cleveland proved to be a genuinely tough, physically demanding matchup throughout that particular series, and in the decisive Game 7 specifically, Detroit reportedly came out flat with little visible energy or urgency from the opening tip, a performance witnessed firsthand from the stands that simply didn't meet the magnitude of the moment.
If I was that big, I would do. A big guy never, ever has to, that never enters into his psyche. Like, man, I wish I was small. I wish I was 6'1", then, I could do that. They don't even think that way. But for us as smaller people, we have to be twice as fast, twice as good, twice as smart in order for us to compete with the genetic gifts that the big guy has.
The conversation then pivoted toward a direct question about Caitlin Clark and the current state of her season overall, framed openly as a personal area of particular interest for the interviewer specifically. The initial response suggested the broader organization appeared to be navigating a transitional stretch heading toward postseason positioning and readiness, requiring some genuine give and take and compromise across coaching staff, players, and the league more broadly as things continue to evolve. pressed further with a more specific and pointed framing, having reportedly watched and rewatched numerous games closely, and arrived at the conclusion that Clark, while clearly an excellent and talented player overall, hasn't shown particularly strong leadership growth, with persistent complaints directed at officiating, theatrical reactions to contact on the floor, and a perceived victim mentality detracting meaningfully from the overall viewing experience, alongside a belief that she bears some real responsibility, though certainly not sole responsibility, for broader organizational dysfunction. The response offered a measured, balanced take in reply. It acknowledged openly that being a highly talented player and being a genuinely strong leader are two distinctly separate skill sets that don't automatically come paired together in every case. Though when both of those qualities do align within one player, that particular combination can produce something close to magic in terms of overall team chemistry.
The genetic gifts that the big guy has.
Isaiah, I want to move a little bit away from the NBA Finals. Did you say something recently about the Jordan flu game not being a flu game, or it's been misbranded, or it's a made-up narrative? Did I? What was said here?
I just said we should start, as historians of the game, we should start telling the truth.
The response suggested Clark remains fully capable of continuing to develop those specific leadership qualities further over time, though whether she actually follows through and does so remains an open question that everyone around the league is watching closely. Heading into her third professional season, it was acknowledged as a fair, reasonable critique that expectations for visible growth in that specific area haven't fully been met yet at this stage, with the clarification offered that the underlying criticism isn't really about her ability or production as a player on the floor, but specifically about her ongoing growth and development as a leader, and that particular distinction, the response agreed readily, is a reasonable and fair point worth raising openly. The interview closed with mutual thanks and a sign-off, with a note that more content would follow shortly after.
And, I covered that game. And we were all told that, he had the flu. Then, since then, his doc came out and he didn't have the flu. But we still promote that game as the flu game, when now we know it's not the flu game. The hero in that game was Scottie Pippen, who was so overlooked. Scottie Pippen basically was playing with a back that he should have been in the hospital with. But we didn't give Pippen the credit of playing in that game, and we saw Jordan leaning on Pippen. Jordan leaning on Pippen. Pippen got a broke back, and he carrying Jordan off the court like he got the flu, but Pippen playing with a real broke back. So I'm just saying we just need to be accurate in our storytelling. That's all.
So, do you believe Jordan was sick?
He said he said he was sick, yeah, but it was in his doc. He said he had food poisoning. He said he had food poisoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you sick from food poisoning, but you didn't have the flu. So let's not call. Let's just be accurate and factual. That's all.
The ill game. He was ill. No, he wasn't ill.
Whatever you want to say, it's not the flu, but
flu-like symptom game. How about that? 38 points with flu-like symptoms.
However you want to say it, you can say it, but also give the guy